It has never been more clear that the Vancouver Canucks have a decision made with Elias Pettersson heading into this year's NHL trade deadline as we get updates coming from Elliotte Friedman on what he's hearing on the forward as the Canucks approach the March 6th deadline, plus an update coming from Jim Rutherford himself speaking on Pettersson and what they're hoping to do with the forward. We're going to break down everything you need to know on Pettersson following a game where he got limited ice time in favor of other players. An update coming from a player within this organization that's looking even better than we expected, and an update on this roster, plus so much more. Now, the big thing with the Canucks, we know they're going to be super aggressive, or hopefully aggressive, going into this year's NHL trade deadline with multiple guys on the trade block. We've seen reports coming from Brock Boeser, Conor Garland, Jake DeBrusk, and of course, this is a team that's going to continuously make moves, sending players up and down as this team prioritizes the future draft picks, young players, everything in between. But I do want to touch on one guy within this organization that's getting a lot of credit from the outside media, and not a lot of the fan base is speaking on this guy. He's really come along right now. This could look like a real nice trade for them, and that is, of course, speaking on Liam Ohgren. Now, Liam Ohgren, when looking at the numbers, not the flashiest, a part of the Quinn Hughes trade, and when looking in a vacuum, this felt like a guy that was a bit of a throw-in. Of course, Marco Rossi, the young second-line center coming out of Minnesota, one of the best blue line chips, coming through with Zeev Boehm, a first-round pick, which could be huge for the Canucks when they're looking at the later half of that round. But with Liam Ohgren, things get super interesting with the big forward-checking Swedish forward. This is a guy that has a very bright future, not even just in the NHL, but with this Canucks organization. Now, when diving into Liam Ohgren, we can see the shots per 60 in the 80th percentile across the entire NHL. The goals and everything else is about mediocre, but the big thing with Liam Ohgren is what we're seeing the young guy do within a Canucks team that is not only struggling on the defensive end, but of course struggling when it goes out on the offensive. Now, looking at Liam Ohgren, when coming from Minnesota and talking to a friend that is a Wild fan, of course, he said that Liam Ohgren can score at every level, but he hasn't shown at the NHL yet. Looking at Liam Ohgren when he was with the Iowa Wild, coming through with 5 points in 9 games, previous to that 19 goals in 41 games, but with Minnesota as a whole, only 3 games over a 3-game or season span since joining the Canucks, putting up 5 goals, 5 assists, and 10 total points. Liam Ohgren is stationed currently on the third line for the Vancouver Canucks with Teddy Blueger and Conor Garland. But as this team gets better, as Liam Ohgren gets more playmaking coming out of his center position, no hate to Teddy Blueger, and I actually hope the Canucks do up him to keep him in this organization. But if Drew O'Connor's moved on, if Evander Kane has moved on, this gives the Liam Ohgren the chance to jump up within this lineup to play with Marco Rossi, Elias Pettersson, someone within that top 6. I think the potential for Liam Ohgren is a lot better than fans are giving the credit to. And listen, we all love Liam Ohgren. He's joined this team, and not only has he came out to be a legitimate offensive threat, but Liam Ohgren has also joined this team throwing a hit a game as well. On top of that, 13 minutes is just shy of his highest time on ice, the 4 games he played with the Minnesota Wild to start his NHL career, putting up 2 points over that span. As the power play time comes to Liam Ohgren, we know he's incredible in the shootout, and what he's doing at 5-on-5 with the limited chances, limited time in that top 6. I'm excited to see how his development continues on, but of course, the biggest question around the future of this team is not only the draft lottery, which is going to be big on its own. Right now, 23.3% chance. There's not many teams that are going to catch up to the Vancouver Canucks when it comes to the bottom of the standings, but it is perfect. We're looking at a rebuild within this organization and a team that wants to build, but this is where it gets interesting when you're diving into Elias Pettersson and what is happening. Now, from the outside looking at Pettersson, defensively outstanding. He has blocked 88 shots this season. He needs 3 more to set the Canucks single season record for blocks by a forward. But of course, the biggest burden on Pettersson with his $11.6 million contract is the fact that the offensive numbers have not been where we want it to be. Looking at the numbers, of course, 11 power play points, 35 points, 13 goals. This is a player that was once a domino, going out to have 100 plus points with a defensive edge to his game. When looking at the advanced numbers, 60 percentile, this is a team that of course needs more out of Pettersson. 27 years old, when looking again over 80% pretty much in all goals, assists, and points per 60, but it doesn't account for exactly what Pettersson is doing. 35 points in 51 games, a minus 18. Don't even look at that. This is a bad Canucks team, of course. But what Pettersson brings to the table, and I know a lot of people are going to click off because I'm going to hype up Pettersson, and I will give, of course, some hate on things that he has improved on. But with Elias Pettersson and what is happening with this Vancouver Canucks, a lot of fans are looking at Pettersson saying, hey, he was a part of a 5-1 loss. He did not score a goal. But when looking at this, we have the head coach, Adam Foote, benching his most highest paid forward within this organization. He wasn't on the ice late because of coach's decision. He got to be better, and he knows that, said Foote. Coach is coaching to win. Whatever he decides, I respect. I've got to be better. My number wasn't called. Now, I'm not going to point to anyone within this organization, but there's a couple of guys that maybe don't deserve the ice time and don't get hindered as much as Pettersson because, of course, the 11.6 next to his contract. But when diving into exactly what has been said around this team, Jim Rutherford, when speaking on Pettersson, he has played better than given credit for this year with the Canucks. I think he's worked very hard on his two-way game. A guy in his position would like to see him do more on the offensive side, but to his credit, he's worked at it. If someone made a great offer, we'd look at it, but it's not a guy we feel we had to get out there and shop. He's he's offensive, can still come back. I think it will. And diving into even Elliotte Friedman with Pettersson's rumors. Famous last words, but it seems quiet on the front. With the Canucks, I don't think selling low on a guy like this makes any sense for the organization. I'm not going to use any of the tweets. There's a lot of disgusting ones online talking about Pettersson, and of course, everything in between on the forward. But the big thing with Pettersson is, of course, we need to see more. That contract, the 11.6. But you're going into a draft where you're going to get at least the 3rd overall pick at this point. You're hopefully going to land Ivor Stenberg, Gavin McKenna, or even Manny Malholtra's son when you get Caleb Malhotra. But this is a team that you need some leadership within this group. There's a lot of guys, of course, on the block. Evander Kane is hopefully going to be moved. Drew O'Connor is very interesting. Could lead the Canucks in goals this year. Brock Boeser's name's out there. Jake DeBrusk. There's a lot of names, but the one in particular that you need to keep, his value's at an all-time low. I'm not going to sit here and say Pettersson is the saving grace on this team. He's going to go out and have a 300-point season next year. Of course, not realistic, but this is a guy that when you get that 1st overall pick, if you land one of the wingers in Stenberg or McKenna, land them straight on that top line with Pettersson going into the first year. If they can get momentum going, we've seen how good Pettersson can be when he has at least a skilled winger on his line that can set him up as well. We've seen this with Kuzmenko, who just had a week-to-week surgery with the LA Kings as well, so getting him on this team is probably out the window. But with the Canucks, you need to keep this guy going through. It feels like all signs are pointing towards that as well, with how the media is talking about him at the very moment, with what Jim Rutherford said, with hoping his offense comes back, with Elliotte Friedman saying it's quiet. It feels like it's almost obvious at that point that Pettersson will be a part of this team heading into March 6th and into next season, and I think it's the smartest choice by the Vancouver Canucks. Well, let me know your thoughts down below. Do you think Pettersson should be traded? Would you rather hold him on to see if his value goes up, or do you think you just hold on and hope that a bounce back comes because you're going into a rebuild anyways? Retaining on that contract is a non-negotiable within this organization, and of course you don't want to sell him for pennies on the dollar. Let me know all your thoughts on this down below. It's going to be a hectic week, and I love reading through the comments. But I've been your host, Mark Pye. I hope you guys enjoyed, and take care, Canucks fans.